Hello, this is Pauline Wiles. Welcome to this self-pubcon session for the Alliance of Independent Authors. I'm so happy you're joining me today to explore the benefits of mindfulness for authors. So before we begin, what is mindfulness? Well, that's a word that I had heard bandied around for years before I started to develop a notion of what it meant. I suspect it might take a lifetime to truly grasp and practice what this encompasses. And well, even now I'm a bit daunted by the task of defining mindfulness. But I'm going to give it a shot to get us started. So from the dictionary, you see that rather wordy definition there. It's a mental state, focused awareness on the present, be calm, acknowledge and accept feelings, and it can be used as a therapeutic technique. Well, that's a bit of a mouthful. So maybe let's hear from mindfulness guru Jon Kabat-Zinn as well. He says mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Okay, so I think that brings me to a little more clarity. I can get my head around that. He's talking about paying attention to now, notice thoughts and feelings, and don't beat yourself up about it. If this still seems a bit nebulous to you, I'd say don't worry, just try it. After all, some things in life are probably best understood by doing instead of someone trying to describe it to you. Today's world and the habits that many of us have learned are basically set up so that many of us are in danger of living at the unmindful end of the spectrum most of the time. Here's a quote I like from a book called The Mindful Writer. In other words, most of us are suffering from a so-called monkey mind. That book's called The Mindful Writer. It's by Dinty W. Moore, and for American readers, I don't think he's actually associated with the canned food brand. However, if you think about multitasking, fear of missing out, endless scrolling through our phones, eating lunch at our desk, checking of email on the weekends, our compulsion to be busy, all these things are overloading our brains with signals and with stimuli that we just can't keep up with. And if we do actually pause to notice that we're doing all of this, well, if you're anything like me, you can feel frustrated with yourself but not know what to really do about it. So self-criticism gets thrown into the melting pot as well. And then, as if all that wasn't enough, as indie authors, I feel we've created lifestyles for ourselves which I believe are even more likely to pull us away from mindful living. I attended a writing conference several years ago, and Guy Kawasaki, he's an author, venture capitalist, and he's also former chief evangelist at Apple. Guy Kawasaki cheerfully told us that we'd better get used to writing, publishing, and marketing our books simultaneously if we wanted to be successful in independent publishing. So, in other words, take on big, important tasks and do them all at the same time. And that's in addition to whatever you're juggling with your family, your job, hobbies, community, and maybe other responsibilities. And if you're trying to do all that for any length of time, you're probably going to feel like you're performing the trick of spinning plates on top of sticks. And if you don't keep on spinning them, the plates are going to fall and crash. So it's not surprising that in a recent poll I did of indie authors, 80% reported feeling stressed and overwhelmed about their writing business. So just a little about me and why I feel mindfulness is so important. I'm an indie author with 6 years in the publishing business, and I've definitely had my share of ups and downs. I began writing fiction seriously in 2012 after I left a job at a startup company which was slowly destroying me. I wrote my first novel while I was taking a break to recover, and then I went back to work. I managed to release 2 further novels and a collection of short stories alongside that day job. However, juggling the day job, writing, hobbies and side projects, that all slowly accumulated to the point where feeling overwhelmed became my steady state. I realized that the glee I'd previously felt in writing was in serious danger of turning to grind. So for the whole of 2017, I devoted myself to experiments with my mindset, my techniques and habits. And my aim really was to learn to juggle my responsibilities, reduce stress, and frankly, my number one weapon has been mindfulness. So not surprisingly, I'm still a work in progress, but I'm now convinced that pragmatic self-care and purposeful productivity are the foundations of a long and happy writing career. Learning some mindfulness techniques has really made an incredible difference to both my writing and to my life as a whole. And I really would like you to be able to benefit from this knowledge too. All right, so why am I keen to spread the word on mindfulness? Let's take a look specifically at how mindfulness can help authors. Firstly, your focus. Writing's obviously a long, hard road, and I'm convinced you know what I mean when I say sometimes we sit down at our desks to write, and before very long, we're doing something else. Maybe you're staring out the window trying to think of a perfect analogy, or you're on the internet trying to fact check some obscure detail when actually you're still in the middle of the first draft. Or you tell yourself you just take a really quick peek on Amazon to see if any fresh reviews have come in for your books. We have so much going on in our lives, both writing and otherwise. It's no wonder that our focus can get wobbly. But mindfulness can be a huge help in noticing when you've become distracted. With practice, you'll find you drift off less often and you come back faster. Secondly, setting productive goals. I speak from bitter experience when I say that as an indie author, you can spend hours on busy work which feels important but doesn't actually move the needle much towards your goals. Social media gets a lot of the blame. We're told to spend time on there and engage with readers, and so we happily do. But there are loads of other examples of busy work too. You might be attending conferences or reading books to improve your skills. You might be driving long distances to meet other authors at book events and book signings. My personal downfall is fiddling with updating my website. The point is, just because we're busy doesn't mean we're productive. And productivity for indie authors typically means writing words you can sell. Mindfulness is a huge help because you're more likely to take the time and the mental effort to step back and decide consciously what you should actually be working on to move the needle and get results. And then, as I've mentioned, mindfulness really helps you notice when you stray from those key tasks. Thirdly, self-talk, self-compassion. Self-compassion is a vital form of self-care in that you practice catching your thoughts and answering back to your critical inner voice. Basically, if you wouldn't say harsh words to a friend, don't say them to yourself. We authors, we're good at this. We can tell ourselves our writing is no good, we'll never finish our novel, or nobody will ever want to read it. Or heaven forbid we get a critical review. At that point we can sink into despair and tell ourselves everybody thinks that our book is rubbish. The first place to start is in noticing this inner conversation, and mindfulness can do that for you. And then in time, you'll start to be able to offer yourself kinder and more realistic messages. The fourth benefit, you're going to rest better and sleep better. Now, it may seem like a stretch to say this, but I believe your mindfulness skills are going to help you sleep and rest better also. You know how that is when you can't drift off and your mind gets busy. Well, I'm now able to notice what's going on and ask myself as I lie there, head on pillow, is this helpful right now? And maybe even turn to some breathing techniques. It's not a magic solution, but noticing what my brain is doing and questioning whether that's really helping me get the rest I need, it does help with sleeplessness. Equally, when you are taking a break or you're spending time with your loved ones, your mindfulness skills are going to help you to be more present and to feel more refreshed. So hopefully these benefits sound good. But before we look at some practical options for getting started, I want to explore just a few mindfulness myths. Firstly, it's too alternative or mysterious or woo-woo. Meditation is no longer considered woo-woo, but it's decidedly mainstream. If Clint Eastwood or Madonna or Oprah Winfrey find there are benefits in it, then you probably will as well. But if you find getting started a bit daunting, we'll look at ways where you can try just 5 minutes of sitting quietly following your breath. Does it take a lot of time? No, it doesn't. 10 minutes a day is enough. Yes, if you love it, by all means do more, but 10 minutes is doable for me and it works. I do believe in setting a fairly low bar for a new habit, so if 10 minutes is scary for you, then sure, try 5. All right, you don't need special equipment or a special location. There's definitely no need to sit on a special cushion. You don't need a private sanctuary full of beautiful green plants. I've meditated in my car, on a train, at an airport. I've snuck into empty conference rooms in offices, and I found myself quiet park benches. You can take a few minutes for yourself almost anywhere. And there's a book I'd recommend. It's called Mindful London by Tessa Watt. Obviously it's great for Londoners, but I include it here for everybody because it has loads of ideas for finding mindful moments in any location, whether it's in a big city or actually in any environment where you might think it would be hard. And by the way, the lotus position is definitely not required. There's no way that I will ever be doing that. Just sit comfortably in whatever way that means for your body. And finally, there's a myth that this is something that you should be able to get good at. Well, no, that's not the case. Some advanced practitioners, they might reach a Zen-like state of bliss, but I never have. And in fact, you're not trying to empty your mind of thoughts, not in the least. I tell myself that the success is in having the thoughts, but noticing them and letting them drift away. So you're not aiming for a state where your brain isn't thinking anything. The benefit here is it will think things, but you'll notice that and be more observant of that. This is a wonderful quote. So you'll have your thoughts, but you can prevent them taking hold and building a nest. Have I convinced you maybe to give mindfulness a try? It's quick, it's free, it's easy, and really you've got nothing to lose. So here are 3 options for ways in which you might get started. Let's look at that first one. A wonderful way to simply get started with meditation is to try a simple breathing practice. I'm going to take just a few minutes to guide you in this. Obviously, we won't spend as long as you would if you did it for yourself. It's just to give you an idea of what's involved. Truly, it's very simple. So, settle yourself somewhere quiet and sit comfortably. Then close your eyes. If you'd like to follow along with me, do go ahead and close them, and I promise I'll tell you when it's time to open them. Otherwise, just relax and soften your focus. Okay, here we go. Now take a deep breath. Fill your lungs completely, and then let the breath out in a big sigh. Do that again. Breathe in deeply and out. Now just allow your breathing to return to normal and simply try to focus on each in-breath and each out-breath. Here's where I think the magic is. Your mind will wander. That's okay. In fact, that's perfect. Your job is simply to notice each time your thoughts stray, and then gently invite your focus back to your breath. Take a few more breaths on your own. Don't judge your thoughts, just notice them and come back. Now, when you're ready, slowly relax, become aware of your surroundings, maybe wriggle your fingers and toes a little, and when you're ready, open your eyes. That was just a taster of a breathing meditation. If you'd like to try it on your own, I suggest just do 5 or 10 minutes and see how it goes. Here's a recap of what we did there if you want to take a note for next time. You'll see it really isn't complicated. Okay, another simple meditation you can try is to watch something. For writers, we use our eyes so much that I usually prefer to do something with my eyes closed. But if that doesn't work for you, then just soften your gaze instead. Sit comfortably and try watching any of these gently moving items. Now, obviously, if you're using a candle, make sure you set it up somewhere safe, somewhere stable, and never do this one if you think there's a risk that you might fall asleep. The sand timer there is simply what you might know as an old-fashioned egg timer, where you invert it and the sand runs through. You can watch that very gently. You can probably think of other items that you might use also. So the principles are very similar as the breathing meditation. Sit quietly and comfortably and just spend some time watching the subtle movements of whatever you've picked. It doesn't seem like much, but you're giving yourself a valuable break and practicing mindful observation. After all, who hasn't sat on a beach watching the waves and felt a sense of calm from that? So in addition to watching something, you can add your other senses in as well. You might introduce a scent that you find restful. I guess the classic here would be lavender. And I love this one. There's also the concept of a chocolate meditation. You simply take a small square of chocolate, place it in your mouth and sit quietly, and then try to notice every sensation and every taste as it dissolves on its own. How sweet is that idea? Personally, I think we're all spending way too much time on our phones these days, but in fact, a meditation app can be super helpful. So here are some that you might try. I've been using Calm for over a year now and I absolutely love it. But maybe start with a free app to see if you find this guidance useful. 2 of them here, they have limited free options and then you would pay a subscription. Mindfulness doesn't just mean meditating. You can also get into the habit of checking in with yourself. So set a reminder for a few times a day. Probably that's going to be the alarm on your phone, but I much prefer the word reminder. When that goes off, you pause and notice how you're feeling and what you're thinking. So try this exercise. Notice what you can see right now and take note of what you can hear. What kind of sounds are around you? Then what can you smell? Depending where you are, you might smell food or nature or maybe fresh laundry. Just take a note. What can you feel? If you're sitting at the time, it's probably your chair or the seat beneath you. If you're standing, the ground under your shoes. So how do your clothes feel on your skin? What parts of your body are tense or relaxed, numb or maybe tingly? And finally, as you might guess, what can you taste? Does your mouth taste neutral or bitter, sweet, and so on? In all of these, try not to judge, just notice. The exercise is simply about pausing and becoming more aware, more present. Now, you can link mindfulness practice to some of your daily habits too. For example, take something you do several times a day and make that your mindful moment. For me, making tea works really well. I do that a lot. But for other people, washing your hands can be a nice opportunity. And when you do that activity, whatever it is, slow down, really just do it and don't do anything else. And then notice the sounds, sights, and sensations that are associated with it. So if you're washing your hands, for example, you've got the feel of the water, you can see soap bubbles forming and popping, there's the smell of the soap probably, and then when you dry your hands, you've got the rustle of the towel or perhaps a crinkle of the paper towel. Or another option, take one thing each day where you tend to multitask and commit that you're going to just do a single task instead. Just do that one thing and try to notice everything about it. If you're waiting for a train, just wait. Really observe your surroundings. Challenge yourself to see things you've never noticed before. I used to love looking for mice while I waited for tube trains on the London Underground. Maybe you're making dinner, so just make dinner. Don't talk on the phone or watch TV. Just focus on that experience of preparing the food. Basically, this technique is that just once a day, you're giving yourself the gift of being fully present. I promise you, I'm no expert in mindfulness and meditation. I haven't spent months in the mountains of India perfecting my art. The progress I've made has definitely not been linear, but I have learned enough to offer you a few tips. Try to find a regular time of day so that you don't forget your mindfulness practice. Earlier in the day is definitely better than later. It doesn't have to be the first moment that you fall out of bed, but try to get it done before the chaos of your day takes too much of a hold. It's fine, maybe you have family, you need to get them off to school. Take care of that and then take your time to be mindful. For example, I used to drive to an office. I would park the car and know that I was on time and in the right place. And then I would take my 10 minutes to do my quiet meditation. So that worked well. It was before the day got hold of me, before I walked into the building and could get interrupted and get into my email. If you're not following a guided meditation or an app, then definitely do set a timer. First of all, you won't be constantly wondering if your time is up or how many minutes have gone by. And if you do happen to fall asleep, then obviously it's nice to have that safety net for you. Please know you haven't failed. You absolutely haven't failed if your mind keeps drifting off during your efforts. For me, that's kind of the point, to learn to notice it and to gently bring your thoughts back. Don't judge your attempts at being mindful, just keep coming back. And please do keep going. My experience is you're not likely to necessarily get an aha moment. The changes in your brain's ability to stay present will probably be more gradual. But if you feel it isn't going too well, then just congratulate yourself that you're doing something really positive for yourself. Especially if you do your mindfulness practice early in the day, you can tell yourself that if for some reason the rest of the day completely falls to pieces, then at least you've done this one good thing. You're basically developing a really healthy habit, and it's a gift for yourself. So those are easy ways to get started on mindfulness as an author. As a reminder, as you get more into this, look for these benefits in your life. You'll get more clarity on what your true goals are. You'll definitely feel more focused when you're working on them. I fully expect that your internal conversations are going to get more positive. And I think your rest and sleep will be of better quality also. If mindfulness sounds like something you want to try, I invite you to take a minute now to make your mindfulness plan. I've learned that mindfulness doesn't just happen, especially if you're new to it. You have to get pretty intentional about it. So go ahead and note down now how you're going to get started. What type of mindfulness technique will you try? We looked at a breathing meditation, a meditation where you watch an object, and the chocolate meditation. Or will you set a reminder to check in with yourself, or decide to pair mindfulness with one of your regular activities? Note that down. Next, when will you aim to do this mindfulness practice? Can you identify a point, hopefully fairly early in your day, when this would make sense for you? And even better, if you have an existing habit, even just brushing your teeth, you can use that as a trigger to remind you about your new mindfulness practice. And where will you do it? Remember, you don't need a special or fancy place. But do give some thought now to a location where you're unlikely to be interrupted. Do you need to let anyone know that you're doing this and ask for support? Often when you're just getting started, you can find 5 or 10 minutes without having to explain yourself to anyone. But if you do need to fill someone else in on your intention, then be sure to make a note of that. If you need a high degree of accountability, you might actually find it helpful to share your plan with someone and ask them to check in with you to see how you're getting on. Finally, do you have any props that you need? If you'd like to try an app, then download that and check that it works on your phone. If you're setting any kind of alarm or reminder for mindfulness, go ahead, do that. Obviously, if you want to watch a candle or use a sand timer, you'll need those. And if chocolate meditation sounds like your thing, you'll want to make sure you have a small supply of good quality chocolate. What a great excuse to go chocolate shopping. In any case, please make your plan. Write this intention and your tactics down, and you have a much greater chance of following through. I'll just give you a moment now to finish off your plan. So please, please do give mindfulness a try. I know it seems like you have 1,000 things on your plate already, but the benefits from this simple technique can be life-changing. I'd be so happy to hear that you've decided to start a mindfulness practice based on what you learned today. To finish, let me share some resources with you. These are some books I like or that I mentioned during this webinar which you might want to check out. You see there Calm by Michael Acton Smith. He's also behind the Calm app too. We talked about The Mindful Writer by Dinty Moore. Tessa Watt wrote Mindful London. And you see my own book there, Indie with Ease. You can also visit this webpage, paulinewiles.com/writers, and there are further resources there on purposeful productivity for writers and authors. I really hope you got value from this beginner's guide to mindfulness for authors. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.